The mountain that speaks. The old people called it the Sleeping Mountain. They said it was sacred. They said anyone who climbed it would bring bad luck to the village. They said many things and had learned to nod his head and pretend to believe them. But he had seen things, strange things. Sometimes on cold winter nights he saw lights flickering near the top of the mountain, blue lights that moved in patterns too perfect to be natural. The old people said it was spirits, thought it was something else. He was 23 years old. He had lived his whole life in a small village at the foot of the mountains. He farmed rice in the summer and hunted deer in the winter. He had never seen a city. He had never seen a machine more complex than a water mill. But he had always felt that something was missing, something important that everyone had forgotten. His grandmother was dying. She had been sick for 3 months. The village healer said there was nothing more to do. Her body was simply too old, too tired. She had lived for 87 years, which was longer than most people in the village. She should have been at peace. But she was not at peace. Every night she called for. Every night she whispered strange words that made no sense. Words like ship and stars and war. Words that belonged to old stories, not to a dying woman. On the night the lights appeared in the sky, everything changed. Was sitting beside his grandmother's bed when he heard the sound, a deep humming that seemed to come from everywhere at once. He ran outside and looked up. 3 shapes moved across the stars. They were not birds. They were not clouds. They were something else entirely. Something that glowed with pale green light and moved faster than anything he had ever seen. The whole village came out to watch. Some people fell to their knees and prayed. Others ran into their houses and hid. The old village chief said it was a sign from the heavens, a warning that dark times were coming. But's grandmother said something different. "They have returned," she whispered when came back to her side. Her eyes were clear for the first time in weeks. Her voice was strong. "The enemy has returned, after all these years." "Grandmother, what are you talking about? What enemy?" Grabbed his hand with surprising strength. "Listen to me carefully. I do not have much time. Everything the village believes is a lie. Everything they told you about the mountain is a lie. We are not simple farmers who have always lived this way. We are survivors, descendants of people who once traveled among the stars." Thought his grandmother had lost her mind, but something in her eyes made him stay silent. 500 years ago, continued, our ancestors fought a great war. A war against creatures called the wanted to destroy all humans. They almost succeeded. Our ancestors fought back with great ships that could fly through space, but they lost. The last ship fell here in these mountains. The survivors crawled out and built this village. Over time, they forgot who they were, but some of us remembered. My mother told me. Her mother told her, and now I am telling you. She reached under her blanket and pulled out a small metal disc. It was smooth and cold, with strange symbols carved into its surface. Had never seen anything like it. "This is a key," said. "It opens the door to the mountain. Inside the mountain is the ship that fell 500 years ago. It may be broken, it may be dead, but it is there. And those lights in the sky tell me that you must find it. You must wake it up, before the enemy finds us again." "Grandmother, this is madness. Ships that fly through space, wars in the stars, these are children's stories." "Then go to the mountain and see for yourself." Pressed the disc into his hand. Go before it is too late. They are searching for something. If they find it before you do, everyone in this village will die. Everyone on this planet will die." She closed her eyes, her breathing slowed. By morning she was dead. Buried his grandmother beside his parents. He stood at her grave for a long time, holding the metal disc in his hand. Part of him wanted to throw it away and forget everything she had said. Part of him wanted to go back to his normal life, to his farm and his hunting and his quiet days. But the lights appeared in the sky again that night, and the night after that. They were getting closer, scanning the valleys, searching for something. On the 3rd night, made his decision. He packed a small bag with food and water. He took his hunting knife and a thick rope. He told no one where he was going. Before dawn, he began climbing the sleeping mountain. The climb was hard. The mountain was steep and covered with thick forest. Thorns tore at his clothes. Rocks slipped under his feet. Several times he almost fell. But he kept climbing, driven by something he could not name. Fear, perhaps, or hope, or simply the need to know the truth. He climbed for 2 days. On the second night he found the entrance. It was hidden behind a waterfall covered by 500 years of vines and moss. But when cleared away the plants, he saw it clearly. A door made of metal. Real metal, smooth and gray, unlike anything found in his village. And in the center of the door was a small round hole, exactly the size of his grandmother's disc. His hands were shaking as he pressed the disc into the hole. For a moment nothing happened. Then the disc began to glow. The symbols on its surface lit up with soft blue light. There was a sound like thunder, deep and low, coming from inside the mountain itself. And slowly, impossibly, the door began to open. Cold air rushed out, carrying a smell did not recognize, something sharp and metallic. He stepped inside, his heart pounding in his chest. The tunnel was dark at first. Then lights began to flicker on, one by one, running along the ceiling like a trail of stars. The walls were made of the same gray metal as the door. Strange symbols were painted on them, words in a language could not read. He walked for what felt like hours, going deeper and deeper into the mountain. The tunnel opened into larger rooms filled with strange objects, chairs that faced walls of dark glass, tables covered with buttons and switches. Everything was covered in dust, but nothing was broken. It was as if the whole place had simply been waiting. Finally reached a large circular room. In the center was a raised platform surrounded by dead screens. This was the heart of the ship. He could feel it. And then a voice spoke. It came from everywhere at once. It was calm and clear, like a woman speaking from very far away. Identification required. State your purpose. Spun around looking for the speaker. There was no one there. He was alone. Who are you? He called out. Where are you? I am Arya, Autonomous Response and Integration Array. I am the ship. I have been dormant for 500 years, 3 months and 17 days. You have activated my emergency systems. Identification required. State your purpose. Thought about his grandmother. He thought about the lights in the sky. He thought about his village, his people, everyone he had ever known. He took a deep breath. The enemy has returned, he said. Can you still fight? There was a long pause. The lights flickered. Somewhere deep in the mountain, something hummed to life. Running diagnostic, Arya said. Please stand by. And stood in the heart of a 500-year-old warship, waiting for an answer that would change everything. Awakening the fallen. The diagnostic took 3 hours. Sat on the cold metal floor, watching lights blink on screens he did not understand. The voice called Arya spoke to him sometimes, asking questions he could not answer. What year was it? How many humans lived in the region? What was the current state of planetary defense systems? I do not know what planetary defense systems are, admitted. We have farms, we have villages, we have nothing that can fight those things in the sky. Arya was quiet for a moment. Understood, accessing historical context. The war ended 512 years ago with human defeat. Surviving populations regressed to pre-industrial technology. The Dominion established control over human territories. Current human status: subjugated. Subjugated. Conquered, defeated, ruled by the enemy. Felt something cold settle in his stomach. He had always known life was hard. He had always known his people were poor and powerless, but he had never known they were slaves. Slaves who had forgotten they were slaves. Diagnostic complete, Arya announced. Hull integrity 34%. Engine systems non-functional. Main weapons array non-functional. Point defense systems 67% operational. Missile reserves, 12 antimatter warheads remaining. Power core, stable but degrading. Estimated remaining operational, 18 months. I do not understand most of those words, said. Tell me simply, can you fight? Not as I once did. The unyielding Dawn was a heavy cruiser capable of engaging entire enemy fleets. That ship no longer exists. What remains is a damaged hull with limited defensive capabilities. However, some systems are still functional. The fabrication unit can produce weapons and equipment. The medical bay can treat injuries. The training simulators can teach combat skills, and I can provide tactical guidance. You can teach us to fight. I can try, but you will need more than one person. You will need soldiers, you will need time, and you will need resources. Stood up, his legs were stiff from sitting so long, his head was spinning with everything he had learned, but beneath the confusion he felt something else, something that burned in his chest like a small fire. It was anger, anger at for what they had done, anger at his ancestors for forgetting, anger at himself for living so long in ignorance. Show me everything, he said. Show me what you have. Arya guided him through the ship. Room by room, level by level, explored the tomb of his ancestors. He saw the cryogenic chambers where the crew had died, their bodies frozen in pods that had failed centuries ago. He touched the walls of the engine room, where massive machines sat silent and cold. He stood in the armory and looked at weapons that seemed like magic, rifles that fired bolts of light, suits of armor that could make a man strong enough to punch through walls. Most of it was broken or corroded beyond repair, but some things still worked. Picked up a pulse rifle. It was lighter than he expected. Arya showed him how to activate it, how to aim it, how to fire it. The bolt of energy hit the far wall and left a smoking hole in the metal. This is how our ancestors fought, asked. This is how all humans fought, before the fall, before the forgetting. Your ancestors were soldiers, warriors who crossed the stars and built civilizations on 1,000 worlds. They did not defeat them easily. They fought for 200 years before the end came. Looked at the rifle in his hands. He thought about his village. He thought about the farmers and hunters he had known his whole life. Could they become soldiers? Could they learn to fight with weapons like this? There is something else you must know, Arya said. Her voice was quieter now, almost gentle. They are not searching randomly. They are looking for this ship for me. Why? Because I carry something they want. During the final battle, Captain uploaded critical data to my core, the coordinates of the colony ships, the last free humans who escaped the war, 12 ships carrying 2 million people, hiding in distant star systems where they could not find them. If they access my core, they will have those coordinates. They will hunt down the colony ships and destroy them. The last hope of free humanity will die. Felt the weight of those words pressing down on him. 2 million people, hiding somewhere in the stars, believing they were safe, not knowing that the enemy was still hunting. Then we cannot let them find you, said. That is correct, but I cannot move, I cannot hide, I can only fight, and I cannot fight alone. Nodded slowly. He understood what he had to do. It was terrifying, it was probably impossible, but he understood. I will find people, he said. I will bring them here, you will teach us, and when they come, we will be ready. He left the ship that night and climbed down the mountain. His body was exhausted, but his mind was racing. He had so much to do, so little time to do it. The first person he went to was. She was the daughter of the village blacksmith. She had dark eyes and clever hands and a mind that never stopped working. When they were children, she had built traps so complex that even the animals could not escape them. When they were older, she had figured out how to build a water wheel that could grind grain twice as fast as the old one. Everyone in the village said she was strange, thought she was brilliant. He found her in her father's workshop, hammering a piece of iron into a plow blade. When he told her about the mountain, about the ship, about the voice called Arya, she did not laugh. She did not call him crazy. She simply put down her hammer and looked at him with those dark, thoughtful eyes. "Show me," she said. They climbed the mountain together. When saw the ship, she stood frozen for a long time. Then she began to cry, not from fear, from wonder, from the sudden understanding that everything she had ever believed was wrong, that the world was bigger and stranger and more terrible than she had ever imagined. "We can fix this," she whispered, touching the cold metal walls. "Some of it at least I can learn, I can understand." Arya spoke to her and listened with fierce concentration. Within hours, she was asking questions that made even the AI pause. Within days, she understood systems that should have taken months to learn. The second person recruited was. He was not from their village. He came from a settlement in the northern mountains, a place that they had raided 5 years ago. His wife and daughter had died in that raid. He had wandered south, a broken man with nothing left to live for. The village had taken him in out of pity. He worked as a hunter and spoke to no one, but had seen him practice with his bow. He had seen the cold precision in his eyes. He had seen the way his hands never shook, no matter how difficult the shot. When told him about the ship, did not ask questions. He simply picked up his bow and said, "When do we start?" Arya trained them, day after day, week after week. She taught them to read the old language. She taught them to use the weapons in the armory. She taught them tactics and strategy, the art of war that their ancestors had mastered over centuries of conflict. It was not easy. The technology was strange and confusing. The ideas were foreign and frightening. But they learned. Slowly, painfully, they learned. And as they learned, others came to join them. Word spread quietly through the villages, a rumor of something in the mountains, something powerful, something that could fight back. People came in ones and twos at first, then in larger groups, farmers who had lost their crops to patrols, hunters whose families had been killed, old men who remembered stories their grandparents had told, young people who burned with a fire they could not name. Arya showed them all the same footage, images from the old war, human ships flying in formation, their weapons lighting up the darkness of space, soldiers in armor standing against impossible odds, a civilization that had spanned the stars, that had built wonders beyond imagination, that had fallen but never surrendered. "Your ancestors were not cowards," Arya told them. "They did not give up. They fought until the very end, and some of them survived. They hid their children in these mountains. They passed down their knowledge generation after generation, waiting for the day when humanity would rise again. That day has come. You are the descendants of warriors, and the enemy is at your door." In the darkness of the mountain, in the heart of a ship that had been silent for 500 years, something was awakening. Not just the machines, not just the weapons, something in the people themselves. Something that had been sleeping for 5 centuries. Something that was finally ready to fight. The first strike. They came to the valley on a cold autumn morning. Their ship landed in the rice fields, crushing months of hard work under its metal legs. 12 soldiers marched out, tall and thin, with gray skin and eyes like black glass. They carried weapons that hummed with energy. They walked like they owned the world, because they did. The village chief came out to meet them. He bowed low, as he had been taught, as his father had been taught, as every human on this planet had been taught for 500 years. "We are searching," the commander said. His voice was cold and flat like stones scraping together. "Old technology from the war, you will tell us what you know." "We know nothing," the chief said. "We are simple farmers, we have no technology." The commander did not believe him, never believed humans. They grabbed 3 of the village elders and dragged them to the center of the square. They asked questions. The elders could not answer because they truly knew nothing. The old stories had been forgotten long ago. They killed them anyway. They burned the bodies in front of the whole village. They said it was a warning. They said more soldiers would come. They said anyone hiding information would suffer the same fate. Then they flew away, leaving behind nothing but ash and terror. Watch from the tree line at the edge of the village. His hands were shaking, not from fear, from rage. He had known those elders. Old had taught him to fish. Grandmother had bandaged his wounds when he fell from a tree as a child. Uncle had always saved the sweetest fruits for the village children. Now they were gone, burned like garbage because no one could stop them. "We have to act now," said when he returned to the ship. "They are killing people. We cannot wait any longer." Arya's response was calm as always. "Our forces are not ready. We have 47 people capable of basic combat operations, weapons for 32, armor for 18. Against a full patrol, our probability of victory is approximately 23%. "I do not care about probability." His voice was hard. "Those were my people, my family, we fight." Stepped forward. She had been working day and night in the fabrication room, learning to make weapons and repair armor. Her hands were burned from hot metal, her eyes red from lack of sleep, but her voice was steady. "Arya is right that we are not ready for a full battle," she said. "But maybe we do not need a full battle. Maybe we just need to hurt them. Show them that humans can fight back. Show our own people that resistance is possible." Nodded. He had been silent since hearing about the killings. His face was like stone. "The patrol ship that came today, where did it go?" Arya displayed a map on one of the screens. A glowing line showed the patrol ship's path. It landed in a valley approximately 40 kilometers northeast. Based on standard protocols, it will remain there for 3 days, conducting local searches before returning to base. 12 soldiers said, "One ship. If we hit them fast and hard before they can call for help, we can win." "The risk is significant," Arya warned. "If even one escapes and reports our presence, larger forces will come. We could lose everything." Looked around the room, at with her burned hands, at with his dead eyes, at the farmers and hunters who had come to the mountain, hopping to find something worth fighting for. "We are already losing everything," he said. "Every day we wait, more people die. Every day we hide, they get closer to finding this ship. We have to show them that we are not afraid. We have to show our own people that the old ways are over. We fight. Tonight." No one disagreed. They prepared quickly. 18 fighters in salvaged exoskeleton armor. 32 pulse rifles, most of them barely functional. No vehicles, no air support, no backup. Just humans who had learned to shoot a few weeks ago, going up against soldiers from an empire that had conquered the stars. It should have been suicide. Maybe it was. They marched through the night, moving quietly through forests they had known since childhood. Arya guided them through a communication device implanted in his ear. She told them where to step, where to hide, when to move. She could not fight for them, but she could give them every advantage she had. They reached the camp just before dawn. The patrol ship sat in a clearing, its lights dim. 8 soldiers slept inside. 4 stood guard outside, their weapons ready, their eyes scanning the darkness. "Remember your training," Arya said. "Aim for the chest, they have 2 hearts. You must hit both to ensure a quick kill. Do not hesitate, do not show mercy. They will not show mercy to you." Raised his hand, the signal to attack. For a moment everything was silent. The wind rustled the trees. A bird sang somewhere in the distance. The world was peaceful, unaware of what was about to happen. Then dropped his hand. And hell broke loose. Pulse rifles fired. Blue bolts of energy screamed across the clearing. 2 guards fell immediately, holes burned through their chests. The other 2 spun around, raising their weapons, firing back blindly into the trees. Moved like a shadow. He had refused the pulse rifle, choosing instead a simple bow with arrows tipped with metal from the ship's hull. Arya had called it inefficient. Did not care. He put 3 arrows into a soldier before the creature even knew he was there. Led a team around the left side, flanking the ship. Her hands were steady as she aimed her rifle, even though her heart was pounding. She remembered everything Arya had taught her. Breathe, Aim, fire. Do not think about the fact that you are killing. Do not think about the fact that you might die. Just breathe. Aim, fire. The ship woke up and came running out, grabbing their weapons, shouting orders in their harsh language. They were better trained than the humans, better equipped, but they were surprised. And surprise, as Arya had taught them, was the greatest weapon of all. The battle lasted 12 minutes. 12 minutes of chaos and screaming and the smell of burning flesh. 12 minutes of humans dying, 3 of them, young farmers who had been learning to shoot just days ago. 12 minutes of terror and pain and desperate courage. And then it was over. All 12 were dead. Stood in the center of the clearing, his armor scorched from a plasma bolt that had almost killed him. His hands were shaking. His breath came in ragged gasps. Around him, his people were cheering, crying, embracing each other. They had won. For the first time in 500 years, humans had killed soldiers in battle. Walked up to him, his bow still in hand. There was something in his eyes that had not been there before, not happiness, something deeper, something like hope. "It is not over," he said quietly. "They will send more." "I know," replied. "We need more people, more weapons, more time." "I know." Nodded slowly. "Then we better get started." They stripped the ship of everything useful. Weapons, armor, technology that could study and learn from. Then they destroyed the ship itself, leaving nothing behind but melted metal and ash. Arya guided them back to the mountain as the sun rose over the valley. By the time they reached the ship, word had already begun to spread. Runners from nearby villages came with questions. Is it true? Did humans really kill soldiers? Is there really a weapon in the mountains? Answered them all the same way. Come to the mountain, see for yourself, and decide if you want to fight. They came, by the dozens at first, then by the hundreds, farmers and hunters and craftsmen, old women with nothing left to lose, young children whose parents had been taken by the. They came to the mountain and they saw the ship, and they heard Arya's voice telling them the truth of their history. And they chose to fight. Among them was a 15-year-old girl named. She was small and quiet, with eyes that never missed anything. Her parents had been killed in a raid when she was 7. She had survived by hiding in a grain barrel, listening to her mother scream. She did not want to fire a weapon. She wanted to understand them. She spent hours in the engineering bay, asking Arya questions, learning how the systems worked. She had a gift for technology that amazed even the AI. "You remind me of the old engineers," Arya told her. "The ones who built this ship, they had the same fire in their eyes." Did not smile. She never smiled. But she worked harder than anyone, learning everything Arya could teach her. They noticed the missing patrol. They would send more soldiers soon. Everyone knew it. But for the first time in 500 years, humans were not afraid. They were ready. The siege of the mountain. The war battalion arrived on a gray morning when clouds covered the sky like a blanket of ash. 300 soldiers, 20 armored vehicles, 6 attack ships that circled the mountain like hungry birds, watched them from the ship's observation deck, his stomach tight with fear. This was not a patrol. This was an army. "They know," Arya said. Her voice was calm but had learned to hear the worry beneath it. "They know something is here. They do not know exactly what, but they know it is dangerous." "How long before they find the entrance?" "Hours, perhaps a day. Their scanning equipment is advanced. They will locate the ship eventually." Closed his eyes. 60 fighters, half-working weapons, a crippled ship that could not move, against 300 soldiers with air support and heavy armor. The odds were not just bad, they were impossible. But they had known this day would come. They had prepared for it. A broadcast filled the air, amplified by speakers on the attack ships. The commander's voice echoed across the mountains, cold and arrogant. "Humans, we know you are hiding in these mountains. We know you have killed our soldiers. This act of rebellion will not be tolerated. Surrender now. Hand over whatever technology you have discovered. If you comply, your villages will be spared. If you resist, every human settlement within 100 kilometers will be destroyed. You have 1 hour to decide. 1 hour. Gathered his people in the main hall of the ship. They looked at him with frightened eyes. Some were crying, some were praying, but none of them were running. They had come too far to run now. You heard them, said. They want us to surrender. They want us to give up the ship, the weapons, everything. And they promise to spare our villages. They are lying, said. His voice was flat and hard. They do not spare anyone. They will kill us all whether we surrender or not. I know, looked around the room. I am not going to lie to you. If we fight, many of us will die, maybe all of us. The odds are not in our favor, they never have been. But I remember what Arya told us when we first came to this mountain. Our ancestors fought for 200 years. They knew they could not win. They fought anyway, because some things are worth fighting for even when you cannot win. He paused, letting the words sink in. I am not asking any of you to die for me. I am asking you to fight for yourselves, for your children, for every human who will live after us. If we surrender today, they will find the colony ships. 2 million free humans hiding in the stars will die because we were too afraid to stand. I will not let that happen. I will fight. Anyone who wants to leave can go now. I will not blame you. No one moved. No one left. Stepped forward, tell us the plan. Arya displayed a holographic map of the mountain. The entrance is our strongest point, a narrow tunnel that only allows 3 or 4 to attack at once. If we hold it, we negate their numerical advantage. I can provide supporting fire with my point defense systems. They are designed to shoot down missiles and small ships, but they will work against ground targets. What about their air support? Asked. My remaining 12 antimatter warheads. Each one can destroy an area of 2 square kilometers. I will use them against the attack ships and the heaviest concentrations of enemy forces. But once they are gone, they are gone. We must make every shot count. And if we cannot hold, his voice was quiet, if they break through. Arya paused. There is a shuttle in the lower hangar, damaged but functional. It can carry 10 people and my core memory unit. If the mountain falls, someone must escape. Someone must carry the colony ship coordinates to safety and warn the free humans that they are hunting them. Who decides who gets on the shuttle? Spoke before Arya could answer. We will decide that when the time comes. For now, we focus on holding. I need you in engineering. Keep the systems running as long as possible. You command the defense at the entrance. The girl looked up at him with her serious, unblinking eyes. Help her with the machines. You understand them better than anyone. Nodded, she did not argue, she never argued. But there was something fierce in her expression, something that said she was not afraid to die. The hour passed. They did not wait for an answer. They knew humans would not surrender. They attacked. The first wave came through the forest, infantry soldiers moving in formation. Arya's point defense guns screamed to life, cutting them down by the dozens. Bodies fell in the trees. Green blood painted the snow. But more soldiers kept coming, stepping over their dead, firing their weapons at the mountain. At the entrance held the line. He had positioned his best fighters in the narrow tunnel, using the walls as cover. Pulse rifles fired in disciplined volleys. Every shot counted. Every shot had to count. Hold your positions, shouted. Make them pay for every step. They tried to push through. They failed. The tunnel was too narrow, the human fire too accurate. Bodies piled up at the entrance, forming a wall of dead that slowed the attack. But they were not stupid. They changed tactics. The attack ships came in low, firing missiles at the mountain itself. The whole structure shook. Rocks fell from the ceiling. Arya launched her antimatter warheads and 3 ships vanished in balls of white fire. But the others pulled back, regrouping, waiting for their moment. They are bringing up the heavy vehicles, Arya reported. Plasma cannons. They will try to blow open a new entrance. Can you stop them? I have 6 warheads remaining. It will not be enough. The battle raged for hours. Day turned to night and still the fighting continued. Human fighters fell one by one, dragged back into the ship by their companions, patched up by the medical bay, sent back to the line. Took a plasma burn to his shoulder but refused to leave his position. Worked frantically in engineering, rerouting power, fixing damaged systems, keeping Arya alive. By midnight, half of the human fighters were dead or wounded. They had broken through the outer tunnels and were pushing toward the heart of the ship. Fought beside his people, his armor cracked, his rifle nearly empty. He killed 5 soldiers with his own hands. He watched friends die beside him. He kept fighting. But it was not enough. They are in the corridors, Arya said. Estimate 30 minutes until they reach the main chamber. Retreated to the bridge, the last defensible position. 15 fighters remained, and were there, covered in grease and blood. Stood by the door, his wounded arm hanging useless at his side. The shuttle is ready, said. Her voice was hoarse from shouting orders. We can load Arya's core and go. 10 people, that is all we can take. Who goes? You should go, said. You started this, you should finish it. Shook his head. I am not leaving my people to die. Someone has to survive. Someone has to warn the colonies. Then you go. I have nothing left to live for. His voice was calm, almost peaceful. My family is dead, my home is gone, but this fight, these people, this ship, this is worth dying for. Let me have that. Spoke up, her voice was small but steady. There is another way. Everyone looked at her. Arya's reactor. If we overload it, the explosion will destroy everything within 2 kilometers. All their ships, everything. That would kill us too, said. Not if we redirect the blast. Eyes were bright with the fire of her idea. The external vents. If we open them and channel the explosion outward, most of the force will go up and out. The inner chambers might survive. Some of us might survive. Might. 23% chance. Arya spoke. The child's calculations are correct. It is possible, not certain but possible. Looked at this girl who had lost everything. This girl who had never smiled. This girl who understood machines better than people. Can you do it? He asked. Nodded. I can try. Then we try. The plan was desperate. The plan was insane. But it was the only plan they had. Turn to his remaining fighters. Hold the doors as long as you can. Give in time to work. And if this does not work, it has been an honor. They broke through the final barricade. They poured into the corridors, firing wildly, sure of their victory. They did not see in the engineering bay. Her small hands flying across controls she had learned to read in just a few weeks. They did not see rerouting power from every system, feeding everything into the reactor. They did not see Arya's core being carefully removed and loaded into the shuttle. They saw only humans, weak, primitive, defeated humans. They were wrong. The shuttle launched. 10 survivors rocketed into the sky, carrying the last hope of free humanity. Behind them, the mountain began to glow. And then the world turned white. The stars, remember, refused to leave. She stood in front of in the burning corridor, her face black with smoke and her eyes bright with fury. Behind her, the shuttle waited, its engines humming, ready to carry them to the stars. You are an idiot, she said. We did not come this far to die in a hole. Someone has to stay and trigger the reactor manually. The remote systems are damaged. You know this. Then I stay. No, grabbed her shoulders. You understand the technology. You can help them build new ships, new weapons. The colonies need you more than they need me. I do not care what the colonies need. I care about, she stopped, her voice breaking. I care about you. Looked at her. This brilliant, stubborn woman who had followed him into madness, who had learned to build weapons from a 500-year-old AI, who had never once complained, never once given up, never once stopped believing that they could win. He said softly, "Go, please." "No." A voice came from behind them, small, determined, absolutely certain. "Neither of you has to stay." They turned, stood in the doorway, her arms full of cables and circuit boards. Her face was calm, too calm for a 15-year-old girl in the middle of a war. "I can rig the reactor to trigger automatically. A timer, 3 minutes. That is enough time to reach the shuttle." "The systems are too damaged," Arya said through the speakers. "A timer would not work." "Not with the main systems, but I have been studying the backup circuits, the ones nobody uses anymore. They are still functional. I can route the trigger through them." Was already moving toward the engineering bay. "It will work, trust me." And looked at each other. "She is a child," whispered. "She is the best engineer we have." They followed into the bay. The girl worked with terrifying speed, her hands connecting wires, adjusting settings, typing commands into consoles that flickered with dying light. They were getting closer. They could hear gunfire in the corridors, screams, explosions, and the remaining fighters were buying them time with their lives. "Done," said, 3 minutes starting now." "Go," Arya commanded. "All of you go now." They ran. Through burning corridors, past fallen friends, over the bodies of soldiers who had paid the price for their arrogance, carried on his back when her legs gave out, fired her rifle at any enemy who got in their way. The shuttle bay was chaos. The remaining survivors were already aboard, stood at the door, his body broken, his arm hanging limp but still fighting. "Get inside," shouted. "I am right behind you." Fired 3 more shots, killing 3 more. Then he turned and limped toward the shuttle. A plasma bolt caught him in the back. He fell. Did not think, he simply acted. He grabbed body and dragged him into the shuttle. Blood was everywhere. Eyes were open, confused, fatting. "Did we win?" he whispered. "We will find out." The shuttle doors closed. The engines roared. They shot upward through the broken ceiling of the hangar, through the clouds of smoke and ash, into the cold, dark sky. Behind them, the mountain exploded. The antimatter reactor detonated exactly as had planned. The blast went upward and outward, a pillar of white fire that reached toward the heavens. The battalion, all 300 soldiers, all their vehicles, all their ships, everything, vanished in an instant of absolute destruction. The shockwave hit the shuttle and sent it spinning, grabbed a handhold and held on, was crying, was praying. The whole ship screamed with the stress of forces it was never designed to endure. And then they were through. The planet fell away beneath them, blue and green and brown by fire, marked by the grave of a warship that had refused to die. Watched it shrink, becoming smaller and smaller until it was just another light among billions. Arya's voice came through the speakers, scratchy now, distorted but alive. "We have cleared the atmosphere. I have plotted a course for the nearest colony ship coordinates. Estimated travel time, 14 months. 14 months. In a damaged shuttle with limited supplies and wounded passengers. It seemed impossible. But then again, everything they had done seemed impossible." Looked around the shuttle. 10 survivors, asleep from exhaustion, bandaging wounds with shaking hands, unconscious but breathing, stable according to the medical scanner. 6 others, farmers and hunters who had become soldiers. 10 people, carrying the consciousness of a warship that had waited 500 years to fight again. It was enough. The journey was hard, harder than anything they had faced before. The shuttle was damaged, leaking air, losing power. They had to ration food and water. They had to take turns staying awake to monitor the systems. They had to believe day after day that they would actually survive. Woke up on the 3rd day. He could not move his legs. The plasma bolt had damaged his spine. He would never walk again. but he was alive. "You should have left me," he said when told him what had happened. "Probably, but you would have done the same for me." Did not argue. Spent most of the journey talking to Arya, learning, asking questions, understanding things that should have been beyond any 15-year-old. She had changed since the battle. She smiled sometimes now. Small smiles, barely visible, but real. Kept them all alive. She fixed the air recyclers. She repaired the water purifier. She held his hand during the long dark nights when he could not sleep, when the faces of everyone who had died haunted his dreams. "Do you think it was worth it?" he asked her once. "All those deaths, all that suffering for this?" Looked out the window at the stars. "Ask me when we get there." They got there. 14 months and 6 days after leaving their burning world, the shuttle entered the system where the colony ship Haven waited. The Haven was enormous, a city in space built to carry 200,000 humans across the void. When its sensors detected the approaching shuttle, alarms sounded throughout the ship. No human vessel had come from the home systems in 500 years. They feared it was a trick, a trap, a weapon in disguise. But then Arya broadcast her identification codes, codes that had not been used since the war, codes that proved, beyond any doubt, that this was a human ship carrying human survivors. The Haven's council met them at the docking bay. 200 people, leaders and elders and historians who had kept the old records. They watched in stunned silence as 10 ragged humans walked off the shuttle. Stepped forward. He was thin from the long journey, from the battle, exhausted beyond measure, but his voice was strong. "My name is, I come from a planet your ancestors left behind 500 years ago. They kept us there, conquered us, tried to break us. They failed." He gestured to Arya's core, carried carefully in his arms. "This is the Unyielding Dawn, a warship that fell in the final battle. She waited 500 years for someone to ask if she could still fight. We asked, she answered, and together we destroyed a war battalion. 300 soldiers, 20 vehicles, 6 ships, all of them gone." The people of Haven did not speak. They barely breathed. "They are searching for you," continued. "They know you are out here. They will never stop hunting. But now they know something else. They know that humans will fight back. They know that we remember who we are, and they know that we are coming for them." The silence stretched for a long moment. Then an old woman stepped forward. Her face was lined with age, her hair white as snow, but her eyes were bright with tears. 500 years, she whispered. "We thought we were alone. We thought everyone on the home worlds was dead or enslaved forever. We thought there was no hope." She reached out and touched his face, as if making sure he was real. "You have given us hope again." The Haven celebrated for 3 days. They shared their food, their music, their stories. They listened to Arya describe the battle, watched footage that the AI had recorded. They wept for the dead and cheered for the living. And when the celebration ended, they got to work. Within a year, the Haven's shipyards began construction on a new warship. Engineers who had kept the old knowledge alive worked beside and combining ancient blueprints with new ideas. Arya served as the core intelligence, just as she had on the original Unyielding Dawn. They called the new ship the Unyielding Dawn II. Was named its captain. 3 years after the battle on the mountain, the ship launched. It was sleek and fast and powerful, carrying weapons that could crack planets and shields that could withstand the fury of stars. Its crew came from Haven and from other colony ships that had heard the story and sent volunteers. Served as tactical officer, commanding from a chair designed for his damaged body. Was chief engineer. Now 18, led the technical team that maintained Arya's systems. And stood on the bridge, looking out at the stars that his ancestors had once ruled. "Where do we go first?" Arya asked. Thought about his grandmother, who had kept the secret all those years. He thought about the 3 elders who had been killed for knowing nothing. He thought about everyone who had died on the mountain, fighting for a future they would never see. Home, he said. We go back to where it started, we free our people, and then we free everyone else. Arya's voice was warm with something that sounded almost like pride. Course plotted, engaging engines. The unyielding dawn II leaped into the darkness between stars. And across the galaxy, the Dominion felt something they had not felt in 500 years. Fear. Because humans do not stay fallen. Humans do not forget. And humans, when they finally stand back up, are terrible in their fury and beautiful in their courage and absolutely, utterly unstoppable. The stars remembered this truth once. Now they would learn it again.